Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Yeah, you're very welcome back to the final hour of tonight's Off the Ball. We are looking back on yesterday's All-Ireland hurling final, won of course by Limerick with a 131-226 victory over Kilkenny. Their third title in a row, their fourth in 5 years. The train keeps on rolling. The Liam McCarthy has been presented to a massive crowd down at the TUS Gaelic Grounds this evening by John Kiley and co. To look back on yesterday's final, delighted to say I'm joined by two men who've gotten their hands on that particular piece of silverware before in their relative respective careers. Shane McGrath joins us on the line, as does Jamesie O'Connor. Gents, you're very welcome back to the show.
Cheers, Richie.
Hi Richie, how's things?
Welcome, thank you. Shane, I'll turn to you first, because it's like we tend to veer as a society, as you know, in the modern age, towards the kind of hyperbole, and that the latest thing is the best thing since sliced bread, and you know, it's the greatest thing since whatever. But there was a sense yesterday watching that, Shane, that we were actually watching something pretty special between those two sides.
Yeah, it was a serious game of hurling. Like 131 to 226. I think it was the highest scoring final on record as well. And just, if you look at what was done from play as well, Richie, like, you know, I mean, I just have their programme here, you know, and like the Limerick half forward line alone scored 113 from play. Like, it's phenomenal shooting, it's phenomenal return. Like, you know, as a hat, you know, Garrod scored 1-5, Kyle Hayes 4 points, Tom Marcy 4 points. Tom Marcy scored 4 points, got taken off. You know, I tell you, if I think even some of my best games for Tip, I never even scored 4 points. But I just maybe it was a thing with the GPS. Maybe it was going, and maybe just feel he was running out of gas. And look, I think it was Cathal O'Neill or Conor Boylan that came on, and they added a lot of energy to it. But look, as a spectacle, as a hurling game, I thought the first half was kind of tetchy enough. And you know, Limerick still had 117 on the board, and Kilkenny had 16 points on the board. And look, like I was just looking at Kilkenny's scores there. Like, you know, I mean, they scored 226, right? They had 15 different scores. Like, if you told any Kilkenny person this time last week, you'll score 226, you'll have 15 different scores on the score sheet. Like, I'd say that most of them would feel, yeah, we're going to win this. And I was just going through the last 10 finals even. That was enough to win the 6 out of the last 10 finals. And the last time Kilkenny scored more than that in an All-Ireland final was 2008 against Waterford, when they scored 330 and they still couldn't win the match. So I just think, what I'm trying to get across is like that it was a serious game. Kilkenny really came to the party. They really showed up on the day, but it still just wasn't good enough to beat this awesome unit that is Limerick at the moment, Richie.
Yeah, Jamesie, I mean, you scored 226 in the final, and you don't want to say you expect to win it, but when you're going up against the side of the calibre of Limerick, it's just unfortunately one of those things where it's not going to get the job done, particularly with the level of scoring that we're seeing now on a pretty much a game-by-game basis in the championship.
Yeah, Richie, we scored 111, and it was good enough in 1995. You know, I mean, they've 117 on the board at half time. Yeah, I mean, like, to score 226, you know, that 30 points normally gets it done, and normally it's, you know, comforting enough to get it done. And like, I felt all year watching Clare, like, that if they got to that level, that they hit that 30-point target, they were going to win the match. So, yeah, I mean, Kilkenny did so many things they needed to do, particularly in that second half. You know, they needed goals, they got the goals, they got level. You know, they were level with 7 minutes, I think, left on the clock, and, you know, really asked all the questions, Richie. And Limerick have had to go to the well, you know, probably deeper this year than any other the previous titles that they've won. You know, Clare obviously asked serious questions in the Munster final. You know, the Waterford match was a contest late on. Tip asked questions, and obviously the semi-final with Galway. So you were wondering, you know, if Kilkenny could take them down the stretch again. You know, would they have the energy? Would they have the desire? You know, and the hunger to you know, to dig deep. And you know, they surged 5 points clear, and that was their response, and that's the sign, I suppose, in a measure of the team that they are. So, yeah, deserving champions, and I think, like, there's no debate. The best team won yesterday, and probably won by a margin that was probably a lot closer than arguably it should have been, because certainly at half time you were wondering how were Kilkenny in this game, because, you know, Limerick appeared to have played so well. Lots of Kilkenny guys, you know, weren't performing, and yet, I suppose, you know, particularly up front, TJ Reid just kept, you know, winning dirty ball and picking out the right pass and manufacturing frees and nailing obviously everything. And every one of those frees was a pressure free, given that they weren't flowing the way that they'd have liked. So, A great final, Richie. And, Kilkenny asked the questions, and as I said, hats off to Limerick. They had all the answers.
Shane, that's the remarkable thing about that first half yesterday, because we were watching it, and particularly in around like the 20-30 minute mark, you're kind of thinking, all right, we've had the Grote Hegarty goal. He's clipping over points to beat the band. Limerick looked like they were seriously well-oiled machine, and this could be whatever they wanted to be. And a lot of people kind of looked at each other by the time the halftime whistle went, saw that Kilkenny were within 4, still had the likes of Walter to come off the bench, and figured, you know what, this isn't actually over. That's testament to how well Kilkenny actually managed to play up against that force of Limerick in the first 35 minutes.
Yeah, they only had 4 wides in the first half. Limerick only had 5 wides. Efficiency was through the roof, I think, yesterday as well, Richie, which is massive kudos to two groups to be the most efficient they were all year on the biggest of days. I think it's a great sign of composure and, I suppose, trusting the system. But I think it's also a great sign of lads save their best performances for the biggest day. It's a fantastic thing to be able to do. But for me, say Limerick had, I was just looking at it here, they had 13 points from play in the first half, and Kilkenny had 9 points from play in the first half. And it's gas to think that almost half of that came from their half back line. Like Paddy Deegan had 2 points from play, Richie Reid had a point from play, and Mikey Carey had a point from play. And then on the other side, Darren Byrne scored 4 unbelievable frees. And I think, lads, I think it got lost in the absolute maybe brilliance of the game. But Darren Burns actually scored a free from the edge of the D in Croke Park. I mean, it was a phenomenal strike of a ball. And people probably say, maybe the ball is too light and everything. But I would be more inclined maybe go towards Darren Burns is the best long-range ball striker in the game at the moment. He hits it right out the middle every time. I suppose, I love the golf. Jamesie loves the golf as well. We even got to play there recently together. And I just watch these guys, you watch the likes of Rory, Morikawa, Spieth, Cam Smith, and it's right out the middle of the club. And I'd say if you looked at Darren Burns' hurley and the sweet spot, I'd say every ball is coming out right out the middle of his hurley, every time, and he just nailed them. But Kilkenny 9 points from play, as I said, 4 of them come from their half back line. I just think the efficiency of TJ on the frees as well. While Darren Burns is the best long range striker, TJ is probably the best free taker in the game at the moment as well. Gillan is serious now as well, but he got seven frees in the first half. He scored every one of them. He missed 1 chance from play, but I just think that Kilkenny kept hanging in there. Because TJ is so good at the frees and, because of what they got, I suppose the return they got from the half-back line. Disappointing from Richie, I suppose, is that, their midfield was probably one area of the pitch that it just didn't happen from yesterday. Cian Kenny scored 1-2 from playing the semi-final, taken off. Connor Brown taken off as well. I felt Will O'Donoghue in particular, he really bossed that middle of the field yesterday. And I suppose that's kind of one area maybe Kilkenny will be a bit disappointed with in terms of, the first half, but to still be only 4 points in it at half time, it was a great sign of of the work rate, and I suppose, as I said, the efficiency they had shooting that goal as well.
James, you mentioned there 95, you won it with 113. We're talking about scoring 226 and not winning it. Obviously, that factor of being able to shoot from range has become a huge one in hurling, and having those players like Dermot Burns who are able to crack it over from 70-80 yards, it's massive. But similarly, it's not as if he's aiming at a target that is about 25 foot wide. What he's trying to do from that range of the pitch is absolutely incredible. And you factor that into as well, we were talking out in the office before the show, while people are able to take on those shots now, it's not as if you came away from yesterday's game thinking that those long range efforts were what dominated yesterday's game, which is testament to, I guess, the skills of both sets of players on show.
Yeah, again, players just, I suppose, play what's in front of them. And Hugh Lawler at fullback was outstanding, Richie, yesterday, because Gillan got plenty of good ball that he's feasted on in previous matches, and his touch was a little bit off yesterday, and obviously his knee was heavily strapped, and he didn't look to be 100%, but Hugh Lawler a lot of the time was in the acres of space with him, and the ball was to Gillan's advantage, and certainly it wasn't Gillan at his best yesterday. He still obviously clipped over a few and got the frees and was constant menace, I suppose, and always required watching. But Limerick, Grote Hegarty was shooting Richie and taking shots on that, if they hadn't gone over, you might have been questioning what's he doing here. But he was strolling around nonchalantly, hitting the ball over the bar from 80, 90 yards. And I mean, to do what Hegarty did yesterday, I mean, 7 points from play in the 2020 final. He won, 2-2 in last year's final from play and 1-5 yesterday. And to be able to produce those performances, Richie, on the biggest stage, under the greatest pressure, speaks volumes for that guy's mindset and the strength, mentally that he has. So look at Limerick have guys that just obviously Burns has been playing, he's been great form all year, and you're taking on those shots, Richie, because of the confidence that you have, and obviously it's something you've worked on. And listen, Limerick believe, and I'm sure it's part of the game plan, etc., that if they get more shots off than the opposition, they're invariably going to win the match. And say if you look back at the stats and look back at the shots on at the post yesterday, Limerick probably had more shots at goal than Kilkenny did, and that's probably been the case all year. And their efficiency levels yesterday, if you keep your wide counts in single digits, you're probably going to win most matches. And you look at Galway, 19 wides in the semi-final, Clare at 24, and you can't afford those levels of inefficiency. So for Limerick and Kilkenny yesterday, to have, I think it was 10 wides apiece, and that's what's required on the biggest stage. And the quality of some of those scores that Limerick got from out the field yesterday was as good as anything we've seen in Croke Park, and particularly Hegarty. And Burns, I mean, the one in the first half again where he, caught it over Owen Cody's head and drove forward and nailed it. I mean, those scores are inspirational. They lift the crowd and they lift the team. But every aspect, Richie, of the way Limerick play, I mean, their puck outs, the way they're constructed, the thought that's going into it, the planning that's going into it, and obviously then to be able to execute it time and time again, is testament to the levels they've taken it to. And every year, you're wondering, can teams close the gap? And Limerick seem to be on a particular level, and teams get to that level, but then find that Limerick have gone to another level again. And that's the challenge facing everybody again. To get stronger, to get faster, to get more efficient. To get more tactically aware in your own puck outs, on their puck outs, figure out ways how to stop them. And they look like, again, that they're not done. And seeing and listen to Hegarty after the game in particular. I mean, after playing for 75 minutes in that heat, and he looked like he could have gone for another 25 minutes. And then to be as grounded and as down to earth as he was, and speak, I suppose, about the way the Dublin footballers have spoken, and Kilkenny hurlers in the past, that this is like a drug to those guys. And as I said, that's bad news for everybody else listening to him beneath field after the game, and what their mindset is going to be going forward.
Yeah, Shane, those players there are kind of rare. Like they have that ability to time almost moves at a different speed for them. And you got that sense watching Grode Hegarty yesterday, pretty much from the goal chance onwards. The speed of thought with which he executed that goal was sublime. And then factor in, as James mentioned, several points that he knocked over after that. Like, he seemed to be playing his own game in a way, in amongst a fantastically well-oiled machine. But he did seem to have that extra split second of time with which to make decisions, with which to get shots away, and was just exceptional, really.
Yeah, I suppose there's a few things on Grode Hegarty. I think that the first thing is, I think I heard him doing an interview after about the 2018 final, in which, Limerick made the breakthrough, and I suppose, they broke that glass ceiling and they set up for the historic stuff they're after doing now, and winning the first one for them, it's always nearly the hardest, because it gives them the belief. But Hegarty did an interview after that and said while he was absolutely thrilled that they won, he was actually disappointed with his own performance in that game. And Jamesie's after calling out his numbers from the last three finals since, and it's off the charts. But this guy's playing a different game to everyone else, lads. I mean, his physicality, a lot of people know he's a fantastic footballer as well. He's an athlete, but this guy can hurl. He's some stick man. I mean, we all talk about Cian Lynch's ability to flick that ball in his hand, at pace and just make it look so easy. Hegarty's doing it on a regular basis. He doesn't go full tilt all the time. He's kind of moving around, ghosting around, but he almost seems disinterested, and then he's just gone. And it's too late for whoever's marking him, because you don't know when he's going to go and when he's not going to go. But I feel that just even watching him in Croke Park, that he knows when he needs to go full tilt, when he needs to go 100%, and he knows when he can just ghost around and find that space for himself. He's one of the best in the game at doing it. And even listening to guys maybe that would have marked him before. He's very difficult to mark because of his physicality, his hurling ability, but because of that hurling brain he has to find space, know when to make a run, know when to not, know when to save energy for the next run. And, you know, he's one of the most unmarkable figures in the game at the moment. You know, no matter what way you go about trying to mark him, if you go physical with him, he'll win it. You know, if you go toe to toe and try and go up and catch it with him, you know, you're at nothing there. Like, so, and I also think the confidence he had in himself yesterday, because like he didn't have the best of semi-finals, Richie. You know, for his standards now. And we're talking, you know, there would have been a lot of lads would be very happy with what they did in semi-final from for a Garrod Hegarty type game. But for his own standards, you know, we don't normally see him taking off a lot. He came off, and like, I mean, to have the self-confidence, the first ball he gets in his hand after 3 going on 4 minutes in an All-Ireland final against Owen Murphy, one of the best, and will be up there with the greatest goalies to ever play hurling. There was only one spot he could put it, like, and it was, you know, maybe a 2-inch squared window. And like, to put it there exactly, and look, it set the tone for the game for himself. Then, as Jamesie said, he just had one of those days. Then, you know, I mean, taking on these shots, 1-5 from play. I think he 2 wides as well. Could have had 1-7, 1-8 from playing an All-Ireland final. But I suppose we're used to this guy doing that now with the numbers as Jamesie gave you there from the finals. And as I said, lads, I really do think he's on a different level. I think he's playing a different game to a lot of the rest of us at the moment. And yeah,
James, go on ahead, yeah.
Yeah, and just 2 things, Richie. I mean, number one, his touch for that first goal was unbelievable. And I don't know if Flanagan meant actually, you know, toe it to him. You know what I mean? It looked like it kind of did, that he just was able to push it nearly with the outside of his right foot. But I mean, the touch up into his hand was just sublime, and that's a guy like that's just has absolute confidence in what he's doing. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that, like, watching Morrissey and Hegarty kind of run amok in you know, the 2020 final and the 2021 final. I think teams have realised that, look, you have to man mark these guys. And I thought Clare and Galway had success to an extent when they kind of put the shackles on Morrissey and Hegarty. And when I say put the shackles on, you contain them and limit the damage as best you can. And certainly if there's one area that Kilkenny will look back on, it's just, you know, did they get it right tactically? And did they get the matchups right?
Well, that was going to be my question to you, James. Like, was there a better way that Kilkenny could have gone about marshalling Garrod Hegarty? Or when you have, like, I'm thinking of that, like, if we were talking about man marking, like Dan Morrissey fielded the ball in the second half, shooting into the Hill 16, took it in one hand, landed, spun, sent it over in like one fluid movement, like with a man literally right up his arse. Like, there's literally no way you can defend against that when he's that
Richie, wasn't there? Like, sorry, no, just to say, because James was there yesterday, you know, and I was there. I was even looking down at the sideline, and James, I don't know if you saw this or not, know where you are, but I even think there was confusion with Cody and the management team as what are we going to do with these lads? Like Paddy Deegan had scored 2 points from play, but like Hegarty had 1-3, 1-4 scored. Like, he was getting up the field. So like James, you'll obviously touch on it, Richie, but I think there even was confusion with Kilkenny management as what are we actually going to do with this fella? Like, because he goes back inside his own 65 sometimes too, Richie. Do you follow? Do you stick? Do you twist? I don't know what Jamesy thinks as well, if he saw that now or not. Maybe it was just me from where I was.
Yeah, that's the challenge, Richie and Jay, because, like, as a wing back, like, you know, you don't want to be 100 yards from your own goal, or, you know, leaving your full back or the 2 lads in your full back line maybe on an island, and that's the conundrum that the players have. I mean, because, you know, you allow him, you know, you don't follow him beyond midfield, and suddenly he's picking up breaks, and he's, as I said, he's nailing shots from 80, 90 yards, and that forces you to come out, and you come out then, and there's suddenly 50, 60 yards of space in front of Gillane, and the quality of the ball going in then, you know, leaves you exposed, and your one slip, Hugh Lawler slipped maybe once yesterday, and Gillane has the ball in the back of the net. So that's the tactical challenge that you face. But I certainly thought, you know, on the puck outs, you know, Fintan Burke did a really good job on Hegarty in the semi-final. Now, part of it was WrestleMania, Richie, and I mean, you know, like, if I was a Limerick supporter that day, I'd have been screaming for a booking for Fintan Burke, or screaming for the linesman to do something about it. And, you know, listen, the Clare lads, obviously there was a certain amount maybe of holding and you could check and runs and stuff like that off the ball, but I think you have to man mark the 2 wing forwards. They've been so influential. You know, 12 points I think from play in the 2020 final, and I think Morrissey got, I don't know, was it 5 points or whatever from playing last year's final. You know what I mean? So these guys have been chipping in, you know, 1-8 yesterday with 11, 12 points from play between them in the Ireland finals, and, you know, those guys doing that kind of damage, you know, has to be curtailed. And that's why I was just surprised, and I just say if Cody had it back, you know, would Mikey Carey have been a better matchup on Hegarty? And I think the communication, particularly when, and the lads highlighted on the Sunday game last night, when they're in the middle, there's huge space, on the opposite flanks. There are ways around that. You know what I mean? You can play zonally, you can, better communication, handing them off if they cross and so on. And certainly the joy that Limerick had in their own puck up when they went long, was something I'd say that Cody, when he looks back on it, will feel that, okay, if we meet them again, this is something we have to get a handle on.
It's a glaring issue. Like I was reading Sean Flynn's piece on the 42 today. It's fantastic as regards like tactical breakdowns and numbers and all that kind of stuff. Kilkenny players, he said, they retained possession on 13 of their 32 long puckouts. Limerick, by comparison, had 34 long puckouts and retained possession on 25 occasions. Like you're doing 50% better. Like that's just bare facts. And Shane, is it something that Kilkenny neglected to work on, need to work on, or is it a combination of the two? Because it's something that isn't sustainable against the likes of Limerick going forward.
Yeah, and I think it's the Limerick factor as well. I think Limerick haven't changed the way they played now, lads, for a few years, because it's worked. But lots of teams have tried different things to try and combat it and try and go against it and try and defeat them. James is right what he said. Clare tried something. They tried that push and squeeze, and it did work. Galway tried it, and look, it did work. It was very, very close game. But everyone else is changing for Limerick, if that makes sense. Limerick won't change the way they play because they have such a good core group of players there. I think they're the only group in the country that can play the way they play. You could be on about other teams and they bring back their wing forwards and they do this, but I mean, if they're taking shots and they're mishitting the ball, or you don't have the likes of a delivery like a Declan Hannon or a Diarmaid Burns or these guys to hit that space that's left by the wing forwards. Not every team has that, lads. So I think Limerick are the only team that can play the way they do. I think I don't think they mind what way you go about it. If you want to let them have the ball short, that's fine. Barry Nash is as comfortable at the ball as anyone in the field. I think he's in hurler deer territory, So if you give him the ball and give him 30 yard, 40 yard space, he'll pick off the space left or right of your extra defender, your sweeper, whatever you want to call it. If you want to go long, which Kilkenny did for the first half, and I think it was just kind of making a note of it up there yesterday. They went long 17 times in the first half. Kilkenny, they only won 6 of them. And we were even saying at half time, I'm sure you were too, Jamesie, they have to change tack here. They have to stop going long, because it's as Jamesie said, Burns' point when they went long. That's a killer. That's a psychological killer. I mean, the wing back there, one of their talismans, snaps the ball up the field, bang over the bar, and the roar after it. It was worth more than the point that went on the board. It was 2-3 points of a psychological blow, to the opposite team. Declan Hannon, Dan Morrissey, they were just getting bodies around every time they went long. And Kilkenny did kind of change tack in the second half, and it did work, and they won the second half, lads. Kilkenny won the second half 2-10 to 14 points. And, they tried to play a better ball, or tried to get the ball to a zone, Richie, where they could hit space better, rather than this thing of going long and hoping lads were going to win it. And look, I just think they don't mind what way they do it. And you talk about crowding out things and everything, it was fascinating. The last play of the game, and I think it's the genius of Connacht as well, they knew they just had to get the ball dead or get a throw in or something. And you could see Paul Connacht and John Kiley, and he just roars at Hegarty and Kyle Hayes and the whole lot of them, all to push over to the Hogan stand side of the field. Nicky Quaid knows what's happening. He puts it long, and it was just the thing of, right, if Kilkenny catch this and go up the field, fair play to them. But we are just going to have so many bodies here. We're going to get the ball to ground. We're going to make it a throw, and we're going to make it a sideline. That's exactly what they got, and they just killed the clock. And I think they knew once that ball went out for a sideline that the game was over. And I just thought it was a fascinating move right at the deck to have the composure from everybody to know that, look, this is what he wants us to do. And you can see Paul Connacht, lads, he's telling them all to get over to that Hogan stand down towards the hillside of the pitch. Quaid puts it down on top of him, and it's just it's a mass amount of bodies there, and all Limerick want to do is kill the ball, get it to ground, get it throwing. I think it's a sign of a real team that know exactly what they need to do when the pressure is highest.
Jamesie, before we go to a break, did Cody leave it too late to make that change as regards to send that ball in, that kind of ball into Walter Welch, from which they profited brilliantly, as Shane mentions there? They won the second half. They outscored Limerick in the second period. and clearly they were going to cause them problems from that point on. Like, is halftime too late to make that change? Does going before halftime make it look like you're panicking? Like, what was the ideal kind of perfect point for them to make that switch in terms of their tactics?
Well, I think they were only 4 points down at halftime, Richie. I mean, and not having played well, like that was a good position to be in. I mean, Clare were 4 points down, I think, to Kilkenny. After 20 minutes, it was 9-5, and it was carriage in that last 15 minutes. So I mean, they Kilkenny were 6 down, I think, heading into the 29th, 30th minute. And you're just saying, okay, they need to, if they could just get a couple of scores, get to halftime within touching distance, and they did that, and stayed on his coattails. So I could understand the fact that he was definitely obviously going to bring on Walter at some stage, and when Richie Hogan was named in the 26, you're saying, okay, and the rumours obviously in the word was that he was going really well in training. I thought he might get game time against Clare. So Cody, I'd say, had a definite plan in place in his mind in terms of that he was going to bring these guys on. But I think, look, at halftime, I was fine with that. 4 points is nothing in a hurling match. And the Kilkenny forwards, I mean, there was lots of rotation. They were clearly trying to get mismatches. Get Walter maybe on Barry Nash. Limerick then would if that happened, there was communication, and it was Dan Morrissey. Where's Walter? Get Dan Morrissey over on Walter. And there was even for Billy Ryan's goal, there was certainly, Billy Ryan found himself in a lot of space. There was a little bit of confusion. Burns was drifting back in, trying to cover for, I don't know, was it Mike Casey, whatever, and Billy Ryan was free and had lots of space, and okay, fortunate to get the shot off the way the cover was closing. But I mean, Kilkenny did ask a few questions. I mean, like, they scored 226, Richie. I mean, you scored 226. It's hard to look at your offensively, your forwards, and some of their forwards didn't play particularly well, but you posted a tally that should have been good enough to win the game. The problem probably was that you just didn't do a better job at the opposite end. And only 2 weeks. I think if Cody had longer, they might have been better prepared. But I mean, they only had the 2 weeks, and Clare played Limerick in the Munster League. Clare played Limerick in the league this year. Clare played Limerick in the round robin. You know what I mean? So Richie, you've had lots of opportunities. You know what I mean, in terms of watching how they play, coming up against them. And Kilkenny obviously haven't met Limerick in the championship since 2019, and I don't think played them in the league, this year, and don't mind to play them last year either. So, that degree of familiarity maybe wasn't there, and it's fine. You can watch the tape and you can watch the games, but it's only when you play them regularly you maybe find out, okay, that guy doesn't play well on Diarmaid Burns, or this guy is a good matchup on Hegarty. You know what I mean? So Clare would have had that in their locker. And the Munster teams maybe do, Kilkenny didn't, and maybe that was a factor as well, and more so, I suppose, when you look at there was only 2 points in it at the end. It's
interesting on the preparation, Tom. We'll probably expand on it just after the break. Few texts in already. 53106. Are we talking enough about the Hegarty goal, lads? I've never seen anything like it. Says Derek. How quick he picked up the ball and galloped through the Kilkenny cover in one fell swoop, and that finish against the best shot stopper in the game. I think it was better than his Munster final goal. Thank you for that one, Derek. And Paul in Dublin. This is a really good question, actually, lads. Am I right in saying that this is a very well liked team by the people in the game? Usually they'll be have been turned on after 4 All-Irelands, but other than some nonsense about foul play, I get the impression that everyone really likes the lads involved, and indeed the manager. Salient point, Paul. 53106, the text. You can tweet us as well at Off the Ball. More from Jamesie and from Shane after these.
Off the Ball on News Talk. Lunchtime Live.
Well, I mean, my own personal view on it, being in the hospitality business in Youghal, and it just seems that the accommodation that we're offering in Youghal has been taken over by the government, with no forethought into seeing the damage that it will do to the tourism industry in Youghal.
Lunchtime Live with Andrea Gilligan.
Brought to you by Avant Money.
Weekdays at midday on News Talk.
Go experience. Go explore this summer with gobreaks.ie. Book a midweek break from only €85 per night, and you'll also receive a free breakfast. Choose from fabulous hotels across the country with midweek extras like early check-ins and late check-outs. Whether it's a girly getaway or a relaxing break, let Go Breaks find the best hotel deals for you from only €95 per night midweek. T's and C's at gobreaks.ie.
Go Breaks. If something's free, why would you turn it down? I mean, a free haircut from a 5-year-old. Oh no, Or a free sample of onion paste? Oh. Well then, how about a free tour of your neighbour's new shed? Oh, sounds, well... OK, look, they were bad examples. But how about a free eye test and free glasses from the €69 range of Specsavers with your PRSI? Well, that sounds like something to smile about.
Book an appointment or find out more at specsavers.ie.
There's never been a better time to buy VHI travel insurance for a range of benefits at home or abroad. For peace of mind when you travel, search VHI Multitrip. VHI Healthcare DAC, trading as VHI Healthcare, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland and is tied to Collinson Insurance Europe Limited for VHI Multitrip travel insurance.
Progress is always possible. It's about completion, not compromise. On one side, future-thinking Audi technology. On the other, meaningful experiences enabled by it. And with every uncompromising, precisely designed detail is a willingness to design an offer that suits you at your nearest Audi dealership. An altogether more forward Audi way of looking at things, don't you think? Because the future is more than a destination. Future is an attitude.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Welcome back. We're looking at yesterday's All-Ireland hurling final win for Limerick over Kilkenny. Shane McGrath and Jamesie O'Connor join us on the line. Just before the break, we read out a text from Paul in Dublin which suggested that Limerick are one of the most well-liked teams in recent memory. And for those who are watching us online on YouTube or indeed on the OTB Sports app, may have seen a little bit of a smile from one Jamesie O'Connor. James, you maybe slightly not agreeing with Paul in Dublin's assessments that they're a well-liked team?
We love this Limerick team in Clare, Richie. Love them, and I'm sure Shane will concur that the Tip lads are in love with them as well.
We're glad to see what's going on in the Gaelic ground there this evening as well. Yeah, we're thrilled in Tip. Yeah.
There is a sense though that they're like when you think of when Dublin were getting to four, maybe it's because it's Dublin and it's the size of Dublin and there's a Dublin against the rest of the country kind of elements to it. But there doesn't seem to be the same, and I don't know if that's the element of, if forgiveness is probably the wrong word, but the fact that they won in 2020 in front of nobody, and they won in, was it last year in front of, a half a crowd or 2/3 of a crowd. This time around, it kind of seemed like they get their valedictory lap that they probably deserve for the last couple of years, and then next year we'll talk. Like next year is when, all right now, they've had their fun now, we'll move on and see how well liked they actually are. Would that be the sense I'm getting, Shane, or am I way off there?
Yeah, no, look, you're right, Richie. I just think it's the characters on the team. They're just, they are like, I'll be honest, look, we're very envious of what's going on in Limerick at the moment, no more so than Clare or Cork or anyone there, because they have an unbelievable bunch, and they waited a long time for it, and now they're in dreamland, and I think all the real genuine hurling people in Limerick realise that someday this won't be the case, and they are absolutely enjoying every minute of it, and rightly so. They're dead right to it. And we'd be the same in Tip, and I'm sure Jamesie would be the same in Clare. But I just think it's the characters on the team that I think they're such likeable characters. We see Sean Flynn and Keane Lynch there, and they're the two of the best hurlers Limerick have ever had, and they always have a smile on their face. And I think people love seeing that. I think they love seeing the human side of it. I think they love seeing lads enjoying playing hurling. John Kiley's he's such a likeable guy as well as their manager. He wears his heart on his sleeve. What he's done. What in his job as well. A lot of people around Tip, will obviously know that he's a principal of the Abbey down in Tip Town, and the way he conducts himself and carries himself there. So I think people just really like the characters on the team, and obviously they're hurling in a way that everybody else is playing catch up for the last 4 or 5 years, and that's why I think, Richie. I just think I just think it's the characters in the team. I think people really like these people. We really like this team. Obviously Limerick people love this team. When I talk about people all around the country or all around the world that are following GAA, they just love this team because of the characters on it. No more so than they love Jamesie's team because of the characters on it. Because of Dale or Jamesie or Shawnee Mack, Ollie Baker, PG O'Connell, they love that team and they love Loughnane. And I think it's something similar, because of the characters and because of the way they're playing, and they're taking the game to a new level. And I think people just really, really like the group because of all those things I've mentioned.
There's an identifiability factor, I guess, James, is Shane's point there. Oh
yeah, listen, you have to earn respect, Richie, and this team I think has earned everyone's respect. Not just in terms of way that they carry themselves, how grounded they are, and all the things. Listen, you'd want in a winning team, and I think look at that. teams look back at our other successful teams and how they carry themselves. And I suppose the humility that the Dublin footballers would have shown under Jim Gavin in terms of, leaving the dressing room, that they hadn't people clearing up after them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That was important. Richie, I'm going to have to plug in a charger here. This battery's going to go, so you might just go to Shane for a second.
No worries. We'll turn to you, Shane. There is certainly an element of this Limerick team we mentioned it earlier on when we were talking about the rugby and the Tour of New Zealand, and even harking back to when we were talking to Jack Cooney Westmeath last week. There seems to be a through line of enjoyment and bringing a level of enjoyment to how you prepare for games. And I guess that's what a lot of people will be envious of, is that you seem to be able to, or these teams seem to be able to enjoy themselves, be aware of themselves and have a good time while still performing at levels that are just deemed absolutely exceptional by anybody's standards.
Yeah, dead right, Richie. Yeah, that's it. Nail in the head there. They're loving it. They're loving it as players. Whether they're feeling the pressure or not, we don't see it. It's very, very rare they don't perform. I was looking through it there. Since Kilkenny bet them, and that was only one loss they had in 18 knockout championship matches, was Kilkenny in 2019 semi-final. And what happened that day was they weren't ready for that. They weren't ready for the first quarter that Kilkenny threw at them in 2019. I think I think they're a serious group. And as Jamesie said, they've earned everyone's respect. They've won All Irelands in July, August. They've won All Irelands in December. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter the time of year or what's going on. They've answered all the questions, and I suppose, I know John Kiley. I know he would say to them that they are Limerick players going on and off the field. And I suppose there was a few stories there, with things that went on with different individual players, and even this year a player stepped out of line, and I suppose the standards that the players hold for themselves and that John Kiley holds for them as well as Limerick hurlers, and that player is doesn't get his All-Ireland medal this year because of it. He stepped out of line, and there was no question about it that he had to go. So that's maybe another reason, Richie, why people are looking at him going, these boys, they talk the talk, but they walk the walk as well. And if it's not good enough, you're just not part of it. That's it. And look, the other thing, Richie, I'll just say quickly maybe as well, that I hope this group get to enjoy their All-Ireland victory. It's their first time in 3 years being able to enjoy it properly without someone sticking a phone in their face every 2 seconds. And if they're having a drink at a bar, or if they're with their buddies and they're whatever they're doing, or they're with their family and friends. And I just think it's one thing that kind of irks me nowadays, that teams be successful or not, or when they're in the spotlight. And we've all made mistakes in life, Richie. But I just think someone is constantly filming something or doing something. I hope that people, when they see them, that they allow them have their good time. And I don't know how you felt about it, Richie. I was a bit peed off about that video going around about the 2 boys over in New Zealand. Okay, I got it on my phone. I got it sent down by someone, and you look at it. But then, I suppose the sports person side of you looks back and goes, Jesus, are they not entitled to have their night out? Yeah, look, I mean, we've all made mistakes, as I said, and sometimes you go out and maybe have a drink too many. But I mean, 99% of the population do it, and there's no issue. But I suppose because these people are in the spotlight, and it just gets amplified. And I suppose, look, that comes with the territory. But I just really hope that we don't start seeing stupid videos going around now about whatever teams win any of the All Irelands, be it in hurling, camogie, ladies football, Kerry and Galway next week. That people just let them enjoy it, because Jesus, they really have earned it. No more so the rugby boys have earned it to let the hair down. The Limerick lads and whoever will be successful, as I said, have earned it too. So I just, I suppose it's something that I was just thinking about there over the last couple of days.
Yeah, no, well said. I think they'll have a far more forgiving audience and a far more reciprocal audience around them, perhaps down in Limerick when they're enjoying their celebrations. Nobody will really want to drop anybody in. Fingers crossed what you mentioned there holds to be true. But Jamesie, we talked about the age profile of the Limerick team. There is a sense that, what we talked about earlier on the show, that there's, in the next 5 years, they've won four in the last 5. There's probably at least another 2-3. Like you mentioned in the lead up to the final, yes, the pack are closing in, but Limerick still do manage to keep teams at arm's length, and finding new ways over the last 3 years, especially, to keep teams at arm's length. And they're regenerating. We saw their bench, the people who came off the bench yesterday as well, managing to do that too. there's a couple more All-Irelands in the next 5 years in this team if they keep trucking at it the way they do. It's a matter of desire, I guess, from this point onwards.
Yeah, that's a thoroughly depressing scenario, Richie, from a clear.
Sorry to bring you down.
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, on a serious note, yeah, I mean, listen to Gearóid Hegarty, as I said, his interview, and I'm sure, you know, it could have been Sean Finn, it could have been Cian Lynch, it could have been Declan Hannon, you know, any of those guys, you know, look at they say the right things, you know, they're obviously a rock solid bunch of guys, and they're ambitious and they're hungry, and they know themselves that, listen, so many of the pieces are in place for these guys to continue to be successful. And you know, Tommy's often said on you know, with you guys, that Tommy Walsh, that it's a drug, you know, and I think Tommy said that you know, losing the 5 in a row, it didn't matter to him because it was the next one he was interested in, you know. So these Limerick guys now, like, if they could bottle that feeling, Richie, that they had in that dressing room after the game, or on the pitch when it's just them, the group, the management, you know, the physios, the you know, the core group of people that you know, you spend months preparing and doing the hard slog with, you know, that feeling, you know, as I said, it's just nirvana, whatever, and you'd love to be able to hold on to it, and you know, and it's getting back and you know, getting into that same place again. That's the drug. That's what the serial winners crave, and that's and as these Limerick guys now have had a taste of it, and you know, I think that'll absolutely be their mindset. They'll be mad to get back again next January. And the way the split season works now, you know, it's not like, you know, you're finishing up in September and suddenly, you know, you're into a Gruden club campaign and the league is starting again then in early January, February, and you know, I think they will have time probably to, you know what I mean, to recharge the batteries and you know, regain the appetite and go again. And look at they did what they did this year for the most part without the reigning hurler of the year. You know, you're assuming he's going to be back next year. Cathal O'Neill again will be a year on in terms of his development. You know, they just need one or two young players coming through, and every club player in Limerick now is asking himself, what do I have to do to be a part of this? You know, so that raises the standards all over the county, and that's only going to help them, you know, remain where they are at the top. So, you know, financially, the support of JP, you know, obviously what they're doing, you know, in terms of their academies, their development squads, you know, their underage, everybody now is on the same page. And you know, Shane Dowding, I think, said it last night, that behind it all, Paul Kinnerk is just, you know, the best coach in the game, bar none. We've never seen a guy, I think, like this before, you know, who just sees things differently, who challenges players, who challenges everybody, you know, and like Kinnerk will be looking for, again, the next edge. And you know, that gives Limerick every chance of adding to this. And yeah, clearly they're not done. But that said, Richie, things can change too. You know, injuries. I thought the two things that could derail them this year were injuries to key players, and obviously Cian Lynch, you know, fell victim to that this year. But I mean, if Diarmaid Burns had gone down, or you know, or Hegarty or Kyle Hayes suffers a long-term injury, does a cruciate or breaks a leg or something, well, you know, that sets you back, and that gives you know, fuel to the opposition as well. So, and that's the first thing. And the second thing then is the hunger. I think I've addressed that. That's something I think that, look at these guys are prepared to do what it takes to get back to where they are. So yeah, look at they're well set as any team arguably in this position has ever been.
Yeah, frightening stuff. Shane, before we let you go as well, obviously the big news this evening is that Liam Cahill's been appointed the new Tipperary manager, succeeding Colin Bonner, who I guess a week ago was relieved of his duties. First of all, your reaction to Cahill's appointments, and second of all, has this thing in Tipperary been handled all that well? I think it's left a lot of people uneasy, the speed at which this has happened and the terminology that was used around Bonner's departure in particular.
Yeah, I wouldn't feel bad about how quickly it was done. I think it's the right thing. I think there was a quick turnover down in Cork as well, like, with Pat Ryan coming in. You know, it's like, what do you want, Richie? Like, I mean, from my point of view, the club championships are getting going here now. Next weekend, the divisional championships are all played here, and the county championships are getting going. And sure, the tip, like, if they were to wait, you know, and they start letting club championships games go on, and next thing you know, that you're not able to have interviews, you're not able to have people in, and look, like, Liam Cahill is the man for the job right now. Like, and I'm personally delighted that he's in as quick as he is. You know, I read the statement there this evening. Mikey Beavens is in with him. That was a certainty that was going to happen. They've been a great, successful team with Tip, and you know what they've done with Waterford as well. You hear a lot of rumours going around, Richie, a lot of stories about the Waterford, the way things worked out this year. I was down in Ennis today that Waterford played their last round robin game, and I suppose their last game under Liam Cahill as a manager, and it just seemed a bit lifeless. Then you hear stories that they trained awful hard, maybe too hard during the round robin side of things. But look, these are all rumours. As regards the way the Colin Bonner thing was handled, yeah, maybe it could be done a bit better, but I suppose the other side of it is, someone will go in and they'll do their best, and as Colin Bonner did, as a player, what he did down in WIT, he was with Wexford, Carlow, I'm sure he went in and did his best. I'm sure, that no doubt about that. But look, it's maybe your best just isn't good enough for a particular job or a particular group, and it didn't seem to be this time. And when Tommy stepped away and Paul Curran stepped away, I think it was inevitable that there was going to be a new manager as well. And the way it was handled, look, I suppose no more so than the players, as I said, being on nights out and these things, they make mistakes. When you put yourself up to be an inter-county manager, and first, it is a ruthless job at the moment, more ruthless than it ever was, being with social media and everything. You hear everything back now. So look, Colin Bonner he'll be disappointed. He made that very clear that he is disappointed the way the thing has been handled. But look, for Tip Hurling, I think it's a great appointment. I think Liam Cahill will bring in his own stamp. I think he's had great experience in Waterford. I think he'll learn from what he did with Waterford as well. And he wants this job. He made no secret about that. He wants this job, and he'll come in and he'll bring his backroom team in, and maybe there might be a couple of surprises who'll be in the backroom team, who knows. But I know that the Tipperary players and the Tipperary public, in particular Tipperary public now, Richie, they really need to start getting behind this team again. They really do. Really need to start following the team. Really need to get out now and get behind Liam Cahill and get behind the boys. And look, I'm delighted with it. I'm excited, and I look forward to the year ahead. And I think Liam Cahill will do a great job with the players. And look, players will have to step up now as well, because I think a lot of the players wanted this guy as manager too, and they have their guy now as manager, and they'll need to step up and put in the performances like so. And I have no doubt that they will. So look, for me, happy days. Yeah. Liam Cahill manager. Hopefully a good 2023 to come, please God.
I'm sure Jamesie, you've added to his list of people he wants to see do badly in Munster next season as well. But for now, Shane McGrath, Jamesie O'Connor, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Cheers, Richie.
Thanks.
A little bit more after this.
Off the ball on News Talk.
Looking for a great value break in Ireland this summer? GoBreaks.ie will find the best hotel deals for you from just €95 per night.